Hello, and thank you for joining us for our third program impact video on the Community Development Block Grant Program at the California Department of Housing and Community Development. These videos are short micro-learning sessions designed to provide a deeper dive into programs and funding resources given for COVID-19. My name is Poonam Patel, and I am a business development specialist in the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, or GO-Biz. A little bit background about myself: I've been at GO-Biz since 2013, and since then have been assisting businesses through our permitting assistance program, site selection, and incentive navigation for our office. To begin, we ask that if you have any questions throughout this video, to please use the link provided below. Upon submission of a question, you will then be connected with a GO-Biz staff member who will share your question with the program contact. All questions and answers will be aggregated into a document to be posted with this video on our website at business.ca.gov. We also want your feedback. We have additionally included a survey link below, and this survey is intended for you to provide feedback on our videos, webinars, and any other content provided by our office. Lastly, we ask that you share this video and stay connected with us. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel for all video content and can follow us on our Twitter at CA GO-Biz and subscribe to our GO-Biz newsletter. Links to both our Twitter and subscription lists are also provided below. And now we're very excited to have Jessica Hayes, who is a program specialist at the California Department of Housing and Community Development, here to talk about the Community Development Block Grants Program. So Jessica, I'll pass it over to you. And would you mind just telling us briefly about your background and then begin to provide an overview of the program?
Sure, thank you, Poonam. So my name is Jessica Hayes. I've been with HCD now for a little over a year and a half. I've been working in the Community Development Block Grant Program for well over a decade, working on different programs for different types of jurisdictions. And I've been working with the state to help them as part of their CDBG redesign and really to implement some new technology and some new opportunities in the CDBG program to help grantees have a better access to the funds and just to really use the funds more effectively statewide. The Community Development Block Grant Program, as managed by HCD, is really, it's a very unique program in that it's one of the most versatile funding sources available. But the program is really managed for the non-entitlement communities, and non-entitlement communities tend to be smaller jurisdictions, rural counties, rural cities. Most of the larger cities and counties in the state of California get their money directly from HUD. So this is really funding that's directed towards more of our rural areas. So I think what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about the CDBG program as it is under normal circumstances, and then the CDBG CV funding, and that was part of the funding that was identified through the CARES Act, and the first allocation has been identified for the state. A little bit about just the basic CDBG. We currently have an open NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability. It's for our 2019 and our 2020 funding. It's about $60 million in total. We're using a brand new online application and management process through a program called Grants Network. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. And we do have some upcoming deadlines specifically for our public services funding and for our housing funding. And so anyone who's interested in getting more information about that, you can access that through the HCD website, and I've put some links later in this presentation to help identify those. And then the other funding source we're talking about is the CDBG CV funding. And that was funding that was part of the CARES Act, and that HUD has provided some guidance on to help us really round out our ability to serve public services and assist in public services, to focus on some economic development opportunities, and then to address some limited public facility needs depending on kind of what's going on with the jurisdiction. I think the next slide, there we go, jumps into the CDBG CV funding. So there's $19.3 million available for the non-entitlement communities in the CDBG CV. HUD has issued some waivers for that funding, and I think one of the most important waivers that we've recognized for that is the ability to use CV funding for public services regardless of the federal caps. So that has given us a lot of flexibility. If a public service is COVID related, we can use it and we don't have to be mindful of the the statutory caps that typically kind of restrict access to public service funding through the CDBG program. There's also a governor's executive order out there that's pending that has some state waivers that allows us a little bit of extra flexibility in terms of how we can operate this program in the state. There's a few state statutes and state regulations that apply to CDBG, and they don't really mesh well with this CV funding because the funding is supposed to be more flexible. So we've asked to have those orders waived. We've got a proposed allocation for our non-entitlement jurisdictions. So we've already gone through most of the amendment process that HUD requires, and we've identified that we're going to be doing just straight allocations, and we can tell you where to find that information later. And then we're looking to do simplified program application administration through our grants network, including some really more relaxed program requirements, because we really want folks to get the full utilization out of these funds. So the next one. So kind of letting you know where we are currently in this process, because it really is a multi-step, kind of multi-purpose process. The first step was to get our HUD plan amendments and address our public participation. HUD gave us a really condensed public comment period. So we held our webinars, we did our outreach, we got that all kind of completed by 4/22. So our development of the amendments is done. We're looking to submit those final amendments to HUD tomorrow, or that 5/8. We've been working on getting those really finalized and finished, and there was a little bit of extra steps we needed to complete, but we're looking to have that done by 5/8. And then we're looking to get our executed grant agreement with HUD by 5/30. Now that really doesn't super impact our timeline in terms of getting the money out to our public. We're hoping to have our CDBG CV NOFA and the application ready and available for the public by 5/25. And then we would be making applications and awards June through August. We haven't put a final deadline into this funding yet. We think we'll probably put a mid-late August deadline in there, and then if we need to adjust it with amendments depending on how the program application and the program uptake works, then we'll be adjusting that. So that's the CDBG CV timeline. On the next one, we've got a little bit of information about the CDBG CV program. So, if you aren't already, I would strongly recommend signing up for the HCD email notifications. You can do that on our main page on our website. Those notifications are our primary tool of letting folks know what's happening, when it's happening, how to access it, where to get information, what the deadlines are. So we really strongly recommend signing up for those emails. If you want to see the draft amendments, you can go to our policy and research page for plans and reports, and that will take you to really all of the planning documents that HCD uses. But you'll go down there, go down to the 2015-2020 consolidated plan amendment, and you'll see the comm plan amendment. And then if you go down to the 2019-2020 action plan amendment, you'll see the action plan amendment in there also. There's also some webinars. We have a webinar that we did on the CARES Act funding, and some with a Q&A and a PowerPoint. So there's a lot of information up there already that folks are welcome to go look at, take a view, and see really if that answers questions for them, because I know that folks have a lot of questions about how this funding will roll out. And then we also have our general CDBG information and training materials, and this is on our basic CDBG web page, our standard page. I strongly recommend taking a look at those training materials. I'm probably going to say that again, but we've really designed these materials to align with HUD's requirements and HUD's priorities. And since the CV funding is really driven by HUD's identified priorities, we want to align with those training materials as much as possible. So I would recommend going to there, taking a look at the training materials, look at the webinars and the PowerPoints and the information that we have available. It will be really helpful as you're thinking about what you might be doing with your CDBG CV funding. So the second portion here is our normal CDBG economic development funding. So state statute for normal CDBG funding has us set aside 30% of our annual allocation to use in economic development. And Since we're doing a 2-year NOFA for 2019 and 2020, that's about $18 million, give or take, that we have set aside for economic development. One of the challenges that has really come up as we've watched what's been happening in our local communities during this whole COVID-19 challenge is that folks need access to resources, and it's hard to get. It's hard to get the resources to where folks really have the ability to access them. And the way that our program was set up, it was really set up for an economy that was in a growth phase. Well, we've taken a look at that and realized that's not the current situation, and we need to be flexible and kind of reevaluate how our program operates so that we can be responsive to the current environment. So we're going to be revamping our current open funding. We haven't received any applications yet. I know a few folks have started applications. They won't be losing any of their data. They should be able to transition over these changes. For the most part, the changes will make the program easier to use. So kind of the high level changes, we're going to be merging the pots of money that we had set aside for the over-the-counter, which were these capital projects, and our competitive funds, and we're going to move it all into a first-come basis so that folks can start to apply for funding on a rolling basis. That means the entire 18 million will be available for programs. We're reducing our program limits. So we had set some pretty high program limits to try and make sure that the funding was all utilized. But now that we're getting so much more interest, we're going to reduce our program limits a little bit, but provide a little bit more flexibility for folks who can really use the money and get it out to the communities faster to make sure that we're fully utilizing our funds. We're going to allow funding in excess of our original NOFA caps. So keep an eye out for the NOFA. That will explain what that means. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds right now, but we're going to be allowing a little bit more flexibility in terms of total funding available. We're reducing our application requirements, but we're going to increase capacity requirements. We're really going to be looking for jurisdictions to partner with nonprofits, to partner with CDFIs, to partner with consultants or with other groups that actually have good expertise in this, or to have staff that have good expertise in operating economic development programs, because we want these to be successful. And then we're really looking to increase like the local jurisdiction flexibility so that they can design their programs to respond to their local needs, because we recognize it's not one size fits all statewide, especially looking in the rural areas and the smaller jurisdictions. So those are kind of the high level changes that we're going to be rolling out, and the next slide shows you the timeline for that, or I guess our next steps. So we're looking to amend our NOFA and update our applications, and we're looking to get that done in the next 2 weeks. We've got the bulk of the NOFA drafted, and the application needs to have some adjustment to it. Really, it's just finalizing our routing, getting the buy-in from our internal stakeholders, and getting that published. So we're really pushing on that to make that happen. And then we'll be looking to start reviewing applications and making awards on a rolling basis in June, with the intent to leave this open through September until the funds are exhausted. If we hit September and we haven't used all of our money, then we'll probably be doing some sort of timeline extension on that. So that's kind of the high level on where we are with the CDBG economic development. I think the next slide has a little bit more information. So I know one of the questions we're getting a lot right now at HCD is, how do we get ready to access this money when it comes out, when these NOFAs are released, especially if we're looking to do things on a much more accelerated timeline than normal. So my recommendation is to get into our training information. We've got a lot of program training about how to use this funding, CDBG basics, environmental, procurement, all of that good stuff. So I would really recommend getting into that training, taking a look at that. There's also training on our online grants management system on Grants Network. So getting a head start on that can really help you to be prepared when you're looking at potentially submitting an application, whether it's for the CV program or for the standard CDBG. We're also going to be really encouraging partnerships with other agencies, other jurisdictions, nonprofits, other economic development groups. So you'll want to be thinking about your partnerships now and how you can get those established and what kind of agreements you'll need to have. We're going to be pushing for folks to get their procurement handled as quickly as possible. So if you need a consultant or some other resource that you're going to have to go out and procure, we've got information about how to do that. So we'll encourage you to take a look at that. And then governing body approvals and resolutions and your public participation. So we just did a updated public participation requirements document, and we held a webinar last week. We should have that up on our website in the next few days, but it has kind of the new requirements for public participation and includes a segment on public participation requirements in the event that there is a disaster or there's emergency, kind of like our current situation where you need to use virtual meetings or other tools to get public input. And so we'd strongly recommend taking a look at that and getting that meeting participation requirement met early. We are really only looking for virtual meetings. We're not looking for folks to hold public participation in any sort of traditional gathering enterprise, but we do want folks to make sure that they're being transparent with their public. And then we have a lot of existing templates currently in our open NOFA, and you can get to that NOFA through that CDBG page that was up earlier. And that way, if you go into that open NOFA, you go into those solicitations, you'll see the files in our file documents. Using those as templates for what you're trying to do is really a great tool, and we can help kind of shortcut the process to getting to our current NOFA by kind of reusing these documents. So if you're looking for additional information, go take a look at our open NOFA and kind of see where the parameters are, and that can help you to see what will be required from the CV funding. And then I've got some email links here for questions. You can send them to our CDBG NOFA email or just our standard CDBG email. Those go to mostly the same people, but we parse them out depending on what kind of a question it is. So that's really kind of what I have for now. Poonam, did you have questions or anything maybe you wanted to talk about?
Yes, thank you so much, Jessica, for that awesome overview. Lots of information there that I think is really going to help our community members. We have 2 questions for you. I think you've actually answered our first one on the last slide, but if you could just reiterate for us again, what is the best preferred method of contact for your agency and this program? And we'll highlight that email address too, again, for our audience.
Yeah, so definitely use the CDBG emails. And if you're looking to do, I'm going to be a little bit nuancy here. If you're looking to talk about our 2019-2020 CDBG NOFA, I would use the CDBG NOFA email at cdbgnofa@hcd.ca.gov. If you're looking for CARES Act response, send it to cdbg@hcd.ca.gov. But if you get messed up and you send one to the one and one to the other, we'll write it up on our end. We'll make sure it gets to the right place. But email's the best way for sure to get in touch with us.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. And then our second question, if you could, just have one thing to share with everyone for applying to your program, what would be that one thing you would want to highlight?
Really do your homework. Take every advantage of the training materials, the Q&As, the existing files, the stuff that we already have up to get familiar with what you want to do to make sure that it's eligible and to make sure that it's something that's going to be viable with the funding. And if you have any questions, reach out to us and ask us. But the more that you can do to prepare now, the faster everything will roll out and the more fluid and effective the whole process will be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for both of those. And once again, to those watching, if you have any questions for Jessica or HCD, you can submit that through the link below in this video. You can also provide feedback on this video through our survey link, as mentioned before. And this video and future videos will be posted both on our YouTube channel and on our COVID-19 webpage at business.ca.gov. Jessica, thank you so much again for your time and for joining us today and being able to share information about this very important program, especially during this time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.